I'm yelling. I'm like, this does not make sense. And I'm screaming and I'm mad. I'm hurt. I heard distinct, I need to talk to you. Will you pray?
That once you understand who God is and who he can be to you, the power that you can have is insane.
God does know what he's doing. He cares for us. And we might not know all the answers to why a certain trial is coming our way. And the reason for that is because deep down we know that the trials we've had make us better and have strengthened us. That's what I've seen.
Jesus is the living water. Like, once you have that, you don't need anything else.
Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us for One Shepherd today. One Shepherd is a place where people of all Christian faiths can come together and share their story and discipleship and love of Jesus Christ. Today I'm here with my friend Sean, and he's going to teach us a little bit about his story and how he has gotten to where he is and why he found Jesus and why he has chosen to stay. So Sean, tell us a little bit about your growing up and how it was religious in the home.
So mom and dad were married when I was born. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. Mm-hmm. And it took them a little while, but they eventually got sealed in the temple. I don't have a baby book because my mom passed away when I was on my mission and they had to just get rid of everything. But I do have one picture of me and my mom standing outside, me and my mom and dad, and I'm just a little baby. And we're standing outside the temple, so we have that picture. So growing up, there were, we did have the church in our lives and God in our lives. But my mom's disease, she had lupus, and it was pretty bad. And long story short, it kind of changed her. This woman who used to just be crazy positive, crazy optimistic, just loved life. Oh, she had this laugh that would just make anyone else laugh, and a smile. She was beautiful. Anyways, she kind of got knocked down, bedridden, paranoia, depression, anxiety slipped in. She convinced herself that my dad was the enemy. And eventually they divorced. So right after having the 5th child, they divorced.
Would you mind telling me what lupus is?
Yeah, lupus is an autoimmune disorder so when you get sick, your body recognizes that there's a virus, a cold, something like that, right? And so it sends white blood cells and all these things to eat the virus, to kill the virus, to get rid of it. Lupus, the white blood cells, they get confused, and so they'll attack like an organ, thinking it's a cold. So I remember, when it ate one of her kidneys. Luckily, you can live with just one kidney. What really changed her is when it went to her brain and changed her personality. What killed her is when it went to her liver. You're going to get me crying already. Anyways, so yeah, it was tough, but we went to go live with my mom, and the struggles just got worse because lupus is also an inflammatory disorder. In other words, the more stress or the more inflamed your body gets, the more it's likely to attack something. And so when she was now a single mom, we all went to go live with her. The lupus really knocked her down. And life was hard because we didn't have money, coming in. My dad, as good as a man as he is, when he married a woman 15 years younger than him, and she didn't really like kids that much, we noticed that relationship kind of separating. And she somehow convinced him that child support is based on how much he makes, not how much she makes. So if she's the one that makes the money, then he doesn't have to pay a lot of child support. And since my mom couldn't work, we lived off welfare. And this is in Southern California. So we didn't live in a lot of great places, gang activity, drugs, alcohol, those kinds of things. And so early on, I had the church. When things were tough, we less likely went to church, especially with mom, because she couldn't take us. So if we found a ride to church, then we did that. But that wasn't the primary focus. The primary focus was, where are we going to get food tonight? Mom's knocked out, whatever it is, like, what are we going to do? So the church wasn't the main thing, but I will tell you, since this is about, how did you find Jesus kind of thing? For me, it was not finding Jesus right away as much as it was finding God. So early on, before the divorce, when life was still somewhat stable, parents were still married, things like that, I remember going to primary, and heaven knows what the lesson was about.
That's usually how it is.
Right. But what I took from it was, you can pray and God will listen. So I talk about a trivial thing. I'm I'm in elementary school and we are going to an assembly, and I was very self-conscious, very anxious. And our class was so far away that by the time we got to the auditorium or cafeteria, wherever the assembly was, the bleacher seats or the table seats or whatever it was were taken, and we'd have to sit on the floor. And I don't know why, but sitting on the floor just really made me anxious. And so we're walking to the assembly hall, whatever it was. And I'm in like second or third grade. I don't remember exactly. And the primary words, teacher's words came to my head and said, hey, if you pray, you'll get an answer. And I didn't believe that something that trivial would work, but hey, why not try, right? So I'm walking, Heavenly Father, just help me to not just sit.
Did you fold your arms and close?
Oh yeah, because back then, a lot of schools, you did have to do that anyways. So it's not like it was a big deal. Like you had to walk quiet and they were strict.
Okay.
So, we're already in line anyway. So, to fold your arms didn't matter and stuff. So anyways, Heavenly Father, help me to just know it so I don't think. So we go in there and I'm not the first in our class. The teacher was up here. I'm somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
We're going in and her class is already sitting on the floor. Oh my God, dang it. And at the same time as our class is filling on the floor, they're setting up like these portable bleachers. And right on me, the person who's directing traffic goes, hey, you go sit over here. And so then all the kids after me the first goes to sit on the bleachers. And I was just like, what just happened? My prayer totally got answered. And so that point, wild. So then check this out. Now I'm just like, I got God on my side. This is great. I can do anything.
100%.
So fast forward like a week later, I'm going to, I think, tumbling. My mom and my aunt, we lived in separate cities, but close enough where the distance to the tumbling place was similar for each party. So they would rotate who took who. So it was me, my brother that went, and then my cousin. And so somewhere along the way, they got mixed up, and both of the parent, or my aunt or my mom, thought that the other one was picking us up from gymnastics or tumbling. So the place closes. It's getting dark. I'm 8 years old, and the two others that were with me were 7. And this is a city. This is not like, anyways, street lights. There's crazy. I decide we can walk home.
Of course.
So we start walking home, and it didn't take too long before we realized that we were lost. And my cousin, the girl, was very concerned at this point. And she's like, how are we going to do this? I'm like, don't worry, we got this. I thought we could just pray. We just pray. So we're on this corner. We huddle in, we say a prayer. I'm not kidding. As soon as we say amen, my aunt pulls up, super mad at us that we left the place, but also grateful that she found us and just hugs us, put us in the car. And that little testimony, that experience has just stayed with me forever. So the more you start questioning, or the more I don't know if I can say the royal you, but for me, the more I start questioning, God and then his plan for me, it didn't take too long to find Christ. And that he's actually the reason that all of this can happen, right? And so finding Christ for me in that sense was more through study.
Okay.
And then, different experiences through life has kind of kept me there. But
that's super cool. I remember it was right before I went on my mission. I was sitting there, and there was somebody who was bearing their testimony. And she gets up, and I really thought about this before, and it's kind of what you were saying. She goes, I grew up and I felt like I knew Jesus, but I felt like I didn't know God.
Oh.
And for me, it was, no. She said, no.
The same way I said it.
I was wrong. She said, I felt like I knew God, but I didn't know Jesus.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the opposite. Oh. I felt like I knew Jesus and I didn't know God. Like I felt like when I got on my knees, and still this sometimes does happen, when I got on my knees and I started to pray and I was talking to God, it felt more like I was talking to some like authority figure. And I've always had trouble with authority figures in my life. Oh. Like all growing up, you would have hated me. Holy cow.
In school?
Oh, no. 100%. No, I promise.
Doubt it.
No, you being a teacher, what is it?
I'm an assistant principal.
Assistant principal.
And before that, a school psychologist.
Perfect. Yes.
Would have loved you.
You would have
guaranteed
hated me.
it.
No, I promise.
Okay.
I was terrible. I talked way too much. Yeah. I was way too loud.
That's kind
I didn't care about anything any of the teachers were saying.
I would have made you care.
No.
I'm just teasing. I promise.
Anyway, so like authority figures were really hard for me. because I hated being told what to do. And so in my head, I think subconsciously I put God in that category. I put God in the category of an authoritative figure that not that told me what to do, but that made me feel bad for what I was doing sometimes. And I was okay with it at the moment, but again, I didn't feel like I knew him. And I felt like I knew Jesus because he knew how I felt. And he was the person that I got to read about in the scriptures. And he was the person that I got to understand who he would go to, how he would go to the people who needed the most help, and how I wanted to be like him. So I had like a layout, a blueprint of who he was and how I wanted to be. But with God, I didn't feel like I had that. All I had was prayer. And so prayer was kind of hard for me. Like it still is sometimes, like getting down on my knees and just like taking the time to say things, because I'm way ADHD brain. Like you better believe I accidentally wrote an email. I started writing my book, and I am planning my day tomorrow in my prayer. And of course, God cares about those kind of things, but it's hard. And so how in your life, how have you been able to like use prayer now? Because you gave examples of when you were younger. What's some advice that you'd give me about prayer? Because I need help.
Have you ever read the Bible dictionary?
Not all the way through.
Description for prayer. So the first paragraph is where prayer is mentioned in the Old Testament and all the scriptures and everything like that. So that gets kind of mundane. So I can see where if you were just going to look up the definition of prayer, that gets hard to understand. But if you go down to the second or third paragraph.
Should we pull it up?
I got it on my phone right here.
Okay, perfect.
It's always there. That's the first part, right? So it's like a lot of references, right?
Okay.
But when you get down to where the references kind of die off, so I'll just read this part. Mm-hmm. It says, as soon as we learn the true relationship in which we stand toward God, namely that God is our Father and that we are his children, at once prayer becomes natural and instinctive on our part. Love that. Many of the so-called difficulties about prayer arise from forgetting this relationship. Prayer is the act, this is the best part, okay? Prayer is the act by which the will of the Father and the will of the child are brought into correspondence with each other. The object of prayer is not to change the will of God, but to secure for ourselves and for others blessings that God is already willing to grant, but that are made conditional on our asking for them. Blessings require some work or effort on our part before we can obtain them. Prayer is a form of this work, and is an appointed means for obtaining the highest blessings, the highest of all blessings, sorry. Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
It hurts me sometimes because I think I want these certain things. And, you read in the scriptures, you pray over the crops of your field, pray over these things. God will bless you with them. I just shared examples of very simple things. I'm asking to sit, not, in a bleacher, in a chair during an assembly. Boom, I was given it. But when my mom was sick and I prayed for her to get better, did that happen? No. You know what I mean? When I pray for, guidance in, whatever direction I'm supposed to go for, am I getting answers, or am I getting the voice that says, hey, maybe I need to study this out more on myself and figure out what's out there, or whatever it is, right? So I'm really grateful for those early experiences I've had, knowing that God has the ability to answer prayer. And in those times where my will and his will are the same, that miracles can happen, that the person directing the line will stop on me and tell me to go sit in that, one spot or whatever it is, right? These miracles can happen. And I realize that sounds so small, but as I've then prayed and not gotten that response, I've questioned, well, why? And that's when that definition of prayer has been super, super helpful for me in my life. There are times, just as much as I think Heavenly Father is trying to help us, there's others on the other side that are trying to help us go the other way,
Yeah.
And there was a time in probably the hardest, close to the hardest time after the divorce. So mind you, remember, I'm the oldest of the 5 kids. The youngest is fairly young. And priorities are survival. We had just moved from a trailer park in Southern California to another city. And one of my first experiences there was a drive-by shooting, a bullet whizzing by my head. And I was scared. It's hard to describe how nervous I was. We were getting help from the church with, Bishop Storehouse, so Deseret Food. Mm-hmm. But how do I say this? I'm not bagging on him. I think that they gave us as much as they could, but that would typically last about 2 weeks. Yeah. So the last 2 weeks of the month, we were kind of on our own. And I remember this one time. Now, I show a picture of me. And I don't know if it'll make it onto this. I can hold it up for a second. But like I said, I don't have any baby pictures of myself. So I don't have any. So this is just from my yearbook. But if you can see, like, uneven haircut, gap in the middle of my
You look
mouth.
great.
Thank you. I don't know if you can see the hole right here. I mean, this is like my best shirt that I'm wearing for, picture day, right? Did not have any friends. I was scared to death. I just kind of whatever. And there was this kid named Spencer who was not. He was the opposite of me. Let me show you one of his pictures here. This was Spencer at the same age. He had his stuff together, a little more smooth. See,
It's kind of like Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah. Had the earring, knew how to do his hair. He had this whole skin treatment he did at night. It was funny. Anyway, but he knew the popular kids, and he was LDS. And we, active when we could be, but like I said, wasn't a big priority. I shared a math class with him, and reading for me was really hard. I have dyslexia.
Me too.
Words move all around. It's so hard. I've never read a book in my whole entire life. Like the Book of Mormon. If I can read chapters at a time, it's fine.
I remember you telling me this.
But like a book, like pages and pages.
That's crazy.
I don't have the patience for it. So I can't do it. Anyways, so audio, savior. I have 3 master's degrees. So just, I can get it done. Anyways.
It gives me hope.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. So he invites me over his house. We live like a block and a half away. And he says, I need some help with math. You want to come over and do it? And by no means should he do this. But he does. And it was that last 2 weeks of the month. Let me rewind a little bit. My mom had been a little crazy. There were a few times where I was woken up in the middle of the night with screams and it was hard. It was, I don't know, I don't want to say too much, but it was, every morning when you leave the house and you don't know if you're going to get jumped by a gang member because you're white or whatever, or, get something stolen from you, because that would happen. You have your headphones on and your Walkman and someone would take it, or whatever it is, your lunch money, whatever it is, you're just scared to go to school or to even leave the house. It was hard even coming home because I didn't know which mom I was going to get. Was I going to get the nice mom, or do I need to now be on protective mode from her to the other kids? You know what I'm saying? Okay, guys, we're going to go outside and we're going to do this, for 3 hours and not be in the home, or whatever it is. My stomach was just upside down. I was just nervous. So to some extent, it didn't matter that we were hungry because I felt like I couldn't eat anyways, but I walk into this house and I could already smell the dinner cooking. And I was just like, my mouth is watering, right? So for an hour and a half, we're upstairs in his room and I can smell this dinner being cooked. It's so hard to focus on math. So eventually I hear the mom say, okay, dinner's ready. And the way she said it made it seem like I'm coming to dinner. And I was crazy excited. I wish I could set this up visually for you, because it's a 2-story house. So the front doors, would open like this. You only go through this door. There's a little platform, and then you can go up the stairs like this. And his room was up here. On the other side of the wall, where the stairs are, I almost wonder if I should explain it like this. So the doors open like this, platform. The stairs go up like this. We're up here. On the other side of the wall of the stairs is the kitchen, and then the dining room, the informal dining room. And so we come down the stairs, and right at the bottom of the stairs, close to the door, Spencer says, okay, it was fun. We'll see you tomorrow. And, oh man. And he leaves. He just goes, he doesn't even hold the door open for me to leave. So I have my hand on the handle of the door, and I'm ready to leave. And I'm just kind of sitting there. I'm like, I have smelt this dinner for an hour and a half. I am starving.
Did he understand what was happening on your
No, I don't think, because we had to keep that secret for other reasons. I haven't gotten into that. My mom was very paranoid. So we had to keep everything that went on in the home secret, even from my dad, especially from my dad.
So he had no idea.
Yeah. Later in life, I learned that maybe he was choosing not to investigate, but probably should have seen the signs. But I think because of his wife's situation and him. Anyways, I'm not bagging on my dad. Love my dad. Good relationship with him. But anyway, so I had my hand on the door handle, and I just lean over as much as I can while keeping my hand on the door handle. And you can almost see like the parting of the wall, and I see this table. Long table. They had 6 kids, mom, dad. So there's 8 settings at this table. That, those KitchenAid bowls, mounting with mashed potatoes. I mean, you would have thought it was Thanksgiving. Okay. I have no idea how long I was standing there, but the mom caught my face. And she was like, oh, honey. And I don't know what I looked like. I honestly don't know what my face was looking like or what I was, what I appeared to be. So she goes, oh, honey, do you want to stay for dinner? Yes, please. So she goes, okay, guys, make a setting. And they all knew what to do. Like one person grabs plates and silverware. The other one grabs another chair and they have this place setting. They sit down and I'm right in the middle. And in the middle, it's just right next to that mashed potatoes. Man, those mashed potatoes, right? We don't have dinner together. It's scrounge for your own food. So there's a serving utensil right next to the mashed potatoes. So what do? Dive right in. Let's do this. Right then, someone, I'm guessing the mom says, well, should we say prayer? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I'm assuming the dad knew who we were because he was in the bishopric. Mm-hmm. And
so same ward.
Same ward. Okay. So he says this prayer, and I don't know what he said in the prayer, but I know how I felt during that prayer. And for the first time in a long time, that upside down stomach turned right, and I felt peace. And we're sitting there eating this dinner, and I'm loving what she served. It was a poor man's steak, which has mushrooms in it, and her kids hate mushrooms. So I am loving on the dinner, and the kids are hating on it. So the mom's loving me because she's just like, honey, you can come over anytime if you're going to love my food like that. And guess what night of the week it was? Monday. So right after we cleaned dinner, which by the way was amazing too, because one of them dealt with the pots and pans, one of them dealt with the dishes, one of them swept the floor, one of them wiped the table, and one of them cleared the table, right? It was unbelievable. They all had their chores, and that structure was not something we had in our home. So I liked that. I know some kids today have chores, and they're like, oh, I hate my chores. But man, when you don't have that, how much more you crave that was amazing. So they all did their thing. And she says, tonight's family home evening. Would you like to stay? And at this point, I had felt so much peace that I was like, yeah, can I stay forever? I didn't say that out loud, but I'm like, yes, please. And they had a wonderful lesson. And they read the scriptures. And it's hard to describe the opposite way I felt in that moment than I do normally. And from then on, I thought, this is what I want. Whatever I have to do. And Spencer took me in. He shouldn't have. When you think of all, I work in a school where there's cliques. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how Spencer included me in his little clique or whatever.
Have you talked to him?
Oh, we're still friends now.
Good.
As a matter of fact, yeah, I see him all the time. It's great. We're hanging out this weekend.
Yay.
By the end of that year, you saw that other picture of me. This is what I looked like by the end of that year.
So completely different.
Well, because to some degree, it's if you're going to hang out with me and my friends, so he gave me his hair product. He gave me, you know what I'm saying? He really helped me socially and spiritually, although spiritually, I don't know he was the best example. Sorry, he got tattoos and everything later. He ended up going on a mission. It was good. That's his story. Anyways, long story short, the expectations that mom put on that kid, Spencer, her son, I took on myself because I wanted what they had. So if he was expected to go to early morning seminary, I made sure I was going to go to early morning seminary. If, he was going to go to church. So I actually worked out a deal with the mom. She picked us up for seminary and she picked us up for church. And that's how we got to church from then on. And I'd say
all your siblings,
as many as that would go. So typically it was just me and maybe two others. But from then on, I would say I was active in the church because of Spencer. It was awesome. Spencer's a killer guy. You need to meet him. You need to
okay, I would love to meet him. That's so cool.
Anywho, I'd say probably one of the most spiritual experiences that I've ever had on my own. The first time where I really put everything out there because it was a constant. I mentioned earlier, why would God answer this prayer but not to help my mom? If my mom was better, maybe us kids would have ended better. I don't think I'm asking for something that was horribly outside the range of righteous. How is this not God's will? My other siblings that didn't graduate high school, one of them, so not the one I talked to you earlier about doing the video, but the other one, he started doing drugs when he was 12. Got a girl pregnant at 17, married her by 18, had another kid by 19, but by 20, she was done with his habits. So she kicked him out of the house, and he just thought, what a great opportunity to devote his life to drugs. So he was that homeless guy you see on the side of the road asking for money. This is in California, though. And he's just going to use it for meth. And he did that for 10 years. My brother, we used to call him Sunshine. My brother was homeless for 10 years until we got a phone call that his body was found in a river in Colorado. That's the path that I feel like normally kids in our situation would have been on. But Spencer and his family, because they were just doing what they do, they weren't trying to get me activated, So fast forward, it was hard to decide to go on a mission because I'm now at this point. So I started working at Burger King when I was 15 and a half. And that was the first time we had, thank you.
I've never eaten there.
Oh, really?
But I go in and take the crowns sometimes.
The crowns are fantastic.
I know.
And they're free. So,
yep.
Anyways, so now there was income. And then I got my brother a job there. And so there was income there. As a matter of fact, so anyways, there was one point where I think I was in like elders quorum because at this point I'm like 18 or 19. Mm-hmm. My friend Spencer had gone on a mission. He's now out and he writes me every now and then. But how am I going to serve a mission? How would I leave? I'm the oldest of these 5 kids. How am I going to serve a mission? There's no way, right? Well, there's a revelation to Thomas B. Marsh who had those same concerns. In his mind, how am I going to leave my wife and kids to serve a mission? And in that revelation to him, God promises, if you serve your mission, your family will be more blessed, temporally and spiritually, by you serving a mission than if you were to stay home. And of course, when I read those words, who did I think God was talking to? Me. So I went out and served. And what was really cool, so I got my mission call to Croatia right after the fall of communism down in Yugoslavia, And my brother, who also worked with me at Burger King, said, why don't we save money for Christmas? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, every year we do the charity Christmas. Like the bishop will buy us something. United Way will get us something. The school will get us all jackets, but what if he's like, you're the assistant manager. You can do the schedule me extra shifts. You pick up extra shifts. We can save money. And this is back in September. And I'm leaving for my mission right after Christmas. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, yeah. And so we ended up saving like $2,000. And we bought each other one gift each, and then the rest of the money was spent on mom and the 3 other kids. And we told Bishop and United Way and all the schools, all these, hey, we got Christmas this year. And we bought all the gifts and we wrapped them and we hid them in the upstairs closet. And a couple of days before Christmas, we went to go visit my dad and his wife to do a little Christmas thing there. And when we came home, our door was slightly open. And I was like, we probably forgot to close it. And then Darren's like, well, unless somebody got in. And we're like, no, but mom's here. Mom, like, they wouldn't break in when someone's here. We opened the door and I looked over and I remember seeing my Nintendo and it was gone. I'm like, Darren, I think we were robbed. Go check the gifts. So he runs upstairs and he looks back down at me after checking the room. I can see on his face, he didn't have to say anything. I knew that they were gone. And I had saved $1,000 for my mission to spend on my mission, in addition to paying for a lot of it. And that was gone. And it was so hard. And I really had to fall back on that scripture that my family would be better. If Satan knew that I was going to go serve a mission to help my family, and days before I go on my mission, that happens. And that's a pretty convincing argument, right? I don't know that without my testimony or without Christ, I would have believed enough to go. But I still went, right? What sucks is that we did wake up Christmas morning with literally nothing. The good news is we didn't tell our siblings that they had gifts. So I swear my sister, she didn't know for like years later, decades later, that had happened. And telling her about that, she was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. She was, I just thought it was like any other Christmas where we just had nothing. And I'm like, yeah, no. Wow. Crazy, huh? So while I'm on a mission, I really was serving for my family, writing them letters and working hard. I convinced my missionary companions to skip lunches. If we just bought enough food and had it in our backpacks, we wouldn't have to take an hour lunch break. We could just keep tracting. And in Croatia, you don't get a lot of, you basically tracked. We were the church. I served in a city where there were 4 members. So it's not like you rely on member work to get the work done. You were knocking on doors. And you would knock on doors for 18 hours a day and not one person would let you in. I mean, it was grueling.
How did you keep doing it?
Faith. Faith on the one time that somebody will say yes, And there's a few experiences that I won't go into, here, but they keep you going. My mom had written me a 32-page letter in complete distress. It was so emotionally taxing to read that I called my mission president and asked him how I could respond. And he helped me write a letter back to her. Now, back then, letters would take like a month to get home. And within that time, there was one day where I got a phone call. And it was strange because it was an American voice. It says, "Hello, is Elder Gallagher there?" And I go, "Oh, hi, this is him. Who's this?" And it's Darren, of the 5. He's the one just older than me. So he took on the role of taking care of the family while I was gone, right? And he had a very somber voice. And I said, "Oh, shoot, is Casey okay?" Casey was the one that was in the middle of the drugs and things like that. And he goes, "Casey's fine, but it's Mom." I'm like, "Oh, no worries then," because I can't tell you how many times, Samantha, that she had gone in the hospital and the doctor said, "Hey, prepare, she's not going to make it." They were always wrong. She'd always come back home. And I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness. Well, yeah, we'll just pray. She'll get better. This always happens, And he says, "No, you don't understand. She's in a coma. She's bleeding outside of her. Like she's bleeding out of her eyes. And the doctor says she doesn't have a liver. She's not going to make it more than an hour." And I was like, are you serious? And he says, "Yeah, I have to go. I'll call you when she passes." And he hangs up. I was now about a year and a half in my mission. For a year and a half, every day, my motivation is to not only serve the Lord, but to provide blessings for my siblings. I don't want anything happening to my family because I didn't get up on time or because I didn't read the scriptures because I wasn't trying as hard as I could. So I don't know if I can explain appropriately the feelings that happened after that phone call. But I walk in, and I'm sure my missionary companion could hear what was going on. I don't know that he knew the extent of it, but he knew something was wrong. And we just moved into that apartment. I'm kicking boxes around. Like, I was so mad. I'm kicking, "This isn't fair. Why?" And I'm looking up to the ceiling like, "I have done everything you've asked." And of course, at this point, I don't know about that prayer description that you and I read earlier, but I'm yelling. I'm like, "This does not make sense." And I'm screaming, and I'm mad. I'm hurt. And I look over at my companion. I mean, what do you say if you're him? He didn't say anything either, but he was sitting on the couch, and a single tear fell. And I could sense in that moment that he knew a little bit of what I was going through, and that he had some empathy. And in that moment, when I was quiet enough to see his tear, as if the Spirit had been screaming at me the whole time, but I couldn't hear it because I was screaming. I heard distinct, "I need to talk to you. Will you pray?" So going back to prayer. So I looked at my companion and I said, "Hey, I'm getting the feeling I need to pray now. I'm going to go in our room and turn out lights and pray. Will you wait out here with me?" He says, "Absolutely." So I went and I knelt, and I didn't know how to start the prayer. So I just said, "Dear God." And before I could even think about anything else, it was as if the words were given to me. But this might sound weird, but I felt like I was asked, "Do you know that I'm God?" And I said, "Yeah, there's too many experiences in my life to say that you aren't real." He says, "Okay. Do you believe I have power to do all things?" I said, "Yeah, I've always believed that. I've wondered why you haven't healed my mom, but I've always believed that." He says, "Okay. Do you believe I know what I'm doing?" I said, "Yeah." He says, I desperately need your mom on the other side. Are you okay if I take her?" And I was like, who might argue with God? So I said, "Absolutely." And in that moment, I was almost proud that he would take her because she was wonderful. Anyways, the Spirit was so strong. I jumped out of the room with energy that shocked my companion so much. He was like, "What is happening? What just happened in that room?" And I said, "Let's go tracting." He said, "What?" And I said, we've had a few doors open to us around, but never in our own building. Let's tract our own building so we're close to the phone." And we did, and we got in. We got into one of our rooms. And as we were talking, I just felt the impression that we need to go back to our apartment. And so we scheduled another appointment with that person, and we went up, and just then the phone rang, and my brother called to let me know that she had passed. And some other miracles happened after that. Turns out she didn't have a life insurance policy, so we couldn't bury her. I called my mission president, who was rich, and I thought would pay for it, knowing my situation. He didn't, but he said, why don't we have the whole mission fast for your mom and to figure out a way for the funeral. And so they did, 24-hour fast. The missionaries all came together, not to find friends or investigators, but to help my family. And 3 days later, my brother gave me a call and he says, we don't need to worry about the funeral. Someone gave us a blank check. For years, I thought it was my mission president. I found out only a few years ago that it was an extended family member, like only legal, like my brother's wife's dad. Didn't even know us. I don't think I've ever met him, but he knew about our situation and he helped. Lots of miracles came for that, which, sorry, I don't even know if you can understand me when I'm crying like this, but God does know what he's doing. He cares for us. And we might not know all the answers to why a certain trial is coming our way. But I heard a little phrase once that said, if all of our trials were hung on a line, you would choose yours and I would choose mine. And the reason for that is because deep down we know that the trials we've had make us better and have strengthened us. And that's what I've seen. Going back to your initial question of how I've found Christ, a lot of it's through study. But I'd say the part that keeps me here is through experience. The opportunities that I've had to rely on him. There's plenty of scriptures that talk about if we can give him our burdens, how much lighter they are. That's just true. I don't know how else to say it. I've experienced it, and that's just the way it is. There's a wonderful story, an example in Alma. You know Alma, the younger, right? So Alma, the older, had just got kicked out of Noah's thing for believing Abinadi. And he starts preaching, and some people follow him. Well, the threats become so strong that he then goes and finds another land. Like let's just get away from this guy. And his example of how to face trials is one of the best I've seen in the Book of Mormon, because there are three people that face the same trial. King Noah had the Lamanites come to him. And the Lamanites are these bloodthirsty, they're going to kill you people. And King Noah ran out of fear. King Noah's son, Limhi, had the same trial come to him. And he tried to fight back with anger. Neither solution worked. But Alma's did. If you remember, they're in this city where they're doing everything they could. They called it the city of Helam. And I mean, they're doing their ministering. Every Wednesday night, the young men and young women are not only coming to activities, but they're engaged. All of it's happening, right? And the next line should say, and they lived happily ever after. No, the next line says, yea, something like the Lord seeth fit to try the patience of his people, right? Try their faith and prove them. And so then this bloodthirsty army comes knocking at the gates. Alma turns to his people who are looking to him for leadership, and they're like, what are we going to do? He says, I don't know what we're going to do, but I know the Lord does. So he drops to his knees, and he gets the strength to go out without any arms, nothing, and meet the Lamanites head on. And in the story, of course, the Lamanites represent our trials. Meet it head on. Hey, I don't know what to do, but the Lord's going to help. And once again, you'd like to think that then they went away, but no. They were given taskmasters. And Alma himself was whipped up and down the street doing hard work. But it wasn't enough, and it didn't change him to hurt him. Oh, he had the worst person put upon him, one of his fellow priests, remember, Amulon. Mm-hmm. And Amulon hates him. So, of course, he's doing everything he can to humiliate him. But whipping him didn't hurt him enough. So what does he do? He whips his kids. Remember, Alma's one of these kids. I don't know what it'd be like as a father to see your kid get tormented like that, right? And I imagine there was some conversation where Alma turned to his dad and said, Dad, I know you had the priesthood. You keep saying you're a man of God. Make this go away. How many times do we pray for our trials to just go away? We forget that Alma the younger went through that, because 2 chapters later when he's rebelling, we think, oh, why is he rebelling, right? We didn't see the blood dripping off his back. But anyways, in that moment, Alma has to say something to his son that is hard for anyone to hear, and that is, in our trials, we can't pray for them to go away. We just pray for a stronger back. Let's lean on Heavenly Father even more. Let's lean on Jesus even more, who's paid for all of it and who's gone through even worse than us. Let's bring him in on this. And they did. And eventually they were, rescued, and they learned from their trials, and it was awesome, right? But like I said, that's one of the best examples of how to face our trials that I've ever seen in the scriptures. And I've tried to live by that, going through my own trials right now. Being here with you is definitely helped me. So it's great. Anyways, I feel like I've talked way too much, by the way. Sorry, everybody.
No, I need it. I think everybody needs it. Everything that you're talking about, it is reminding me of John 6.
Yeah.
So John 6 is where Jesus feeds the 5,000 and he walks on the sea, all the good things. But right after, Jesus takes them the loaves, and it says that he gives thanks. So first, the disciples' faith was tried for what was happening, right? Like, you really think we can go get these and then it's going to feed all these people?
Can you imagine the questions?
I'm a question asker, so I'd be sitting there and be like, you got to be kidding me right now. Like, can you explain to me step by step how this is going to happen? Right?
I've said this once before, but there's only 2 of these, right? Okay. No, you know that?
Did you
okay,
see
great.
it, though?
Great. Yeah.
Did you look?
Right.
Okay, perfect. Now we're on the same page here. So Jesus takes the loaves and he gives thanks. This is the first thing that he does. The amount of times I have been given something and forgotten to give thanks first before I use it is insane. Right? So you're sharing these stories with me, and you just seem so I don't know how one could be grateful for the things that you have gone through, but that's how it feels to me that you are. And that is something that I need to work on, and something that I know that everybody needs to work on.
Need to continue. I do.
Yeah. So first given something and then given thanks. And then he goes on to, he kind of has everybody sit down. He gives it to everybody. And then it says, John 6:12 says, when they were filled, he said unto his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. And I love that verse.
How come?
I love that verse. I love that verse because first they were filled. He waited till they were finished. And so I think there's a difference between being filled physically and being filled spiritually, right? So this is what you were saying in your story, right? You were very hungry growing up, and you were also needing to be filled spiritually. You had both hungers, which is worse, right? So when you were finally physically filled, that was a chance that you were able to be spiritually filled afterwards, because you had that family meeting, right? And so both are very important. But in this moment, it says it like it is that they were physically filled because it's talking about food. But I don't believe that. I mean, when we take sacrament, when we take communion, right? You take a little piece of bread and you take a little cup of water. And the feeling that if you allow yourself, that you feel after you take those things, you don't need anything else.
Right.
Right?
No.
Jesus is the living water. Once you have that, you don't need anything else. And so they were filled, and it has a comma, and then it says, and then he said unto his disciples, so after, he says, go gather up the rest. Go gather up the remains. What do you mean there was remains?
I know.
There was more? What do you mean there was more? What do you mean there was more?
Yeah.
So none can be lost. So he had just performed this miracle with the help of his Father, gave thanks, and then he said, there's more. Go gather it up. So my question would be, what did he do with these remains?
Yeah.
It doesn't really say, besides the fact that they were gathered. And so for me, it's okay, how many times have I been lost or felt like a fragment that has possibly...
And none shall be lost.
And none will be lost. None. And this includes your brothers. And do you have sisters?
Yeah, one. That was the 5th one.
Okay.
By the way, she has lupus.
She does?
Mm-hmm.
And how...
She struggles. She just got to have a surgery recently. She has a lot of followers too. If you want to look her up, it's her last name looks like Paradise. I think it's pronounced Paradise.
You'll have to show me after.
Brittany Paradise, yeah. And she's doing okay. So she explains her trials and things, but it's good.
I'll be praying for her.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's the fact that Jesus wasn't just like, okay, well, everybody ate. Let's move on with our lives and go skip around and let me give you a sermon really fast. You know what I mean? It's like, no, he was like, no, like, let's account for the things that are lost. And the amount of times I've had to remind myself of that, it's like, okay, I could be one of two people. I could be one of the people that was filled, or I could be one of the people that is lost. And I mean, could have been out in the city and maybe wanted to come with those thousands of people, but I didn't. And so maybe afterwards, Jesus and his disciples walked and they gave it to the people who didn't get it, who didn't come. And how many times have I not showed up? Yeah. How many times have I not shown up to something Jesus is trying to teach me?
You said a word that I think you said, remember. And I think about even some recent events where I felt alone. If I would just remember the things that I've learned and felt and experienced and all that kind of stuff. So it comes back to even what you're doing here. And anyone who's watching this, hopefully they remember. You know what I'm saying? The fact they're taking time to even listen to this very long one that shows that they're trying to remember. And I hope that they're blessed for that.
Me too. Well, remember is one of the most used words
in the scriptures. Yeah.
And it's literally because we so easily forget.
So easily forget.
I have one more question.
Sure.
So grief is a very hard thing to deal with.
Yep.
And it seems like you have dealt with it a lot. How have you used grief? And now, I mean, obviously, I feel like it doesn't end, and maybe it does. You can correct me on that. But how have you used grief to now fuel what you are doing now? Or understand
Are you talking about the grief just from like my mom?
It could be anything in general. And like more in your like, specifically in maybe your career path, because you've done a lot of psychology. And so how have you been able to use that to empathize and sympathize with people?
So I think a cycle that's happened for me with my grief has not just been the grief of loss of loved ones or those kinds of things. It's been more, how do I explain this? If I'm remembering from where my blessings are coming, a lot of my grief has actually been, guilt's not the right word, but the feeling, why did I make it? I feel very bad for my sibling that passed. I feel very bad for my other sibling that's going down the same exact road. So what's driven me is knowing that there are people and resources out there. I think about the people that made a difference in my life. So the grief has driven me to help guide people to the resources that are out there, because there are a lot, or just that I may be the resource. So I'd say that has kept me humble. Sometimes people that know me may not say that. And just put me in a place where I want to help because I know how hard it is. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. One more question.
Sure.
I lied.
You lied. Yeah. The other
totally
one was just
lied.
A precursor.
It was, 100%. What is some advice that you give to somebody who is struggling with understanding who God is to them? Like what is some advice that you'd give to them?
It's probably the same you would give, and that is drop on those knees. Put yourself in a situation where you were humble enough to accept that there is someone there. I think a lot of times for those that are even struggling to know that there is a God, there's a sense of, this might be the wrong word, but pride, or that I know better. Like there's no way there could be a God. There's no way that, those kinds of things kind of get in the way. Let that go. Open your heart enough to hear him. And when you get on your knees and you sincerely pray, I can't. I have never met anyone that isn't touched by God in that moment. Have you?
No.
Exactly.
The sincerity part is important, though.
Yes. Yeah, you're not testing someone else's theory.
It's not like
you're not
mundane, like over and over again type of thing. It's like an actual conversation.
There's got to be a hope in it. The hope that if there is a God that loves you of what that could mean. And I think if you had that, boom, the Spirit would come. You'd be directed. You'd be directed to probably, learn more about Jesus and the plan of salvation. Man, his role in the plan of salvation. Amazing. The sacrifice he made for us, and just the hope in that, let alone the blessings that await us, geez, that could be a whole nother discussion.
Oh, 100%. And what you said, it goes back to what you said earlier, like when you were a kid and you realized the power of prayer and you're like, wait, like God listens to me and I can actually do stuff with him.
Yeah.
Like you said, once you understand who God is and who he can be to you, the power that you can have is insane.
His wisdom in answering that prayer for me guided everything.
Yeah.
It was a dang assembly.
But he cared about the little things you cared about. And he always does.
It meant a lot.
Yeah. And he'll continue to sprinkle those little things everywhere.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is great.
Yes, thank you so much. And I know people will be blessed from hearing your story. So don't ever stop sharing it.
I don't.
Good. Don't. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate it. And just know that God loves you and pray. He answers your prayer.
Yep. He does.
He does always. Thank you so much. Bye. Peace.